Yeah.
So the lesson is that like distribution is the most monetizable thing in games, period, or for any developer, right? That's what everybody's looking for. So
Okay, we are back with our KBW coverage live from the conference floor. I'm looking out to see if people eating around us, but we're here with Justin Waldron and my co-host Frederick. Justin is the founder and CEO of Open Game Protocol. We spoke with him about a month ago at WebEx in Tokyo. Really enjoyed that conversation. Graham and I spoke about that conversation several times afterwards. So thank you for that. And thank you for coming back on.
yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. All right. So the first thing we're going to start with is I'm going to make a fool of myself and attempt to kind of encapsulate what Open Game Protocol is,
Sure. Yeah.
because I think it is quite a cool project. But if I'm honest, it's a little hard for maybe normies and dum-dums like myself to really kind of like get all the different parts involved. Okay. All right. So here we go. Open Game Protocol, I would say is almost like a marketplace where it meets three or more different parties and satisfies all of their needs. So it satisfies, for example, meme coin communities who want ways to kind of continue the interest and strengthen their communities. And basically right now they only have one thing to do, which is like make meme posts on like social media.
Yep.
It helps with game companies, especially at the beginning with smaller game companies, but it can be all game companies who spend an ungodly amount of money trying to get distribution and reach for their games. And this allows them a distribution with a much lower cost per acquisition, I guess, or something like that. And it also helps for like, I would say crypto companies such as wallets, who also are trying to keep users engaged with their application and find more uses for buying or for using the wallet instead of just like buying or selling.
Speculate. Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Is that roughly?
It's pretty good.
Okay, go ahead.
But I think it's tough because there are different actors. But the simple way of thinking about it is, if Stripe allows you to spend 5 minutes as a developer implementing credit card transactions inside your application, we do the same for token rewards. So from a game developer's perspective, it's been a long undertaking to implement crypto into your game. And so most of them haven't done it. So it's taken large investments from some of the foundations to get these larger game developers on board. And it's taken 6 months or a year of development on these games to go build an economy around smart contracts. We're saying, wait a second, that's how credit cards used to be. In my first company, Zingo, when we started that, we actually had to go build a credit card processing team. We had 25 people that just did what Stripe does for you now, in-house, fraud, everything to do with payments, right? Then an API came out and now everybody has their own team in Stripe to handle this stuff. So for us, for game developers, the simplest thing is, why don't you see crypto in every game in the App Store? It's too hard. And what if you could earn tokens after a 5-minute integration? That's the first piece. So Stripe, like what Stripe did for credit card processing, we do for token rewards inside of games. Super easy. The second part is, what if every token community that existed on Solana and these top EVM chains had its own game ecosystem? And what if traders had a reason to speculate on the game ecosystem that created rewards that then could be used to pay the developers who create the content and the players who play the games? So in other words, this unlocks the ability for a community like Fartcoin, which maybe has a lot of attention right now, to also have a Fartcoin game ecosystem, which just sounds ridiculous, but could really be a thing. There's a whole community of people who want to support this. There's certainly enough capital if you can get it allocated in the right places and then distributed to the right teams and the right players. So what we're trying to do is build the protocol that connects these groups to create this value.
Right. Yeah. Right. And something that's always great about technology is, and you see this in other areas of crypto with a lot of the infrastructure that's been built out since like 2020, is a lot of these crypto companies have had to, like what you were talking about with credit card companies, they had to reinvent the wheel every time.
Yes.
Right. And every project had to create ways to, pull data from the blockchain and push data. And now they just use infrastructure companies to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So when we spoke at WebEx about a month ago, you said that you had some announcements or some news that you would be able to talk about in the forthcoming weeks. Well, we're a month past that. Where's that stand?
Yeah, so we're extremely close to shipping the actual full-fledged protocol. It should be in about the next week or two. And since then, we've actually closed a lot of partners that we can't talk about yet, but some of the top token communities from Solana are some that we'll be working with very, very quickly right out the gate. And so you could expect a lot of attention on the launch for sure. There's already at least 100 games ready to go on the platform at launch. This sounds like a lot, but it's because we're not asking of these game developers what some of the other platforms have asked in crypto before. We're not saying redesign your entire game economy around smart contracts and spend 2 years figuring it out. We're saying add some Fartcoin rewards to your game. It takes 5 minutes, right? And so we're allowing for this sort of collaboration that before was just too high costs of a transaction for anybody to really explore. And so we think there's just going to be a ton of interest and creativity that comes out of it.
Great. All right, 2 questions from that. The first is, when you say you're going to ship the protocol, what does that entail exactly?
Yeah, exactly. So there will be a place where you can go to the website and you can start to explore all these different game ecosystems. So maybe the Fartcoin game ecosystem, maybe WIF, maybe other large tokens you've heard of on Solana, and traders can participate in thinking about which game ecosystems they think would be the largest. And when they participate in speculation on these game ecosystems, that will also fund the reward pools, which will then go to pay the game developers who build games for this ecosystem. In other words, the more excited people get about a Fartcoin game ecosystem, the more funds there are to actually go and make it real by paying the developers to go create the content and paying the players for playing the game. So this has like a flywheel built in that sort of actually makes this thing get bigger as people believe in it more.
So it'll be an application.
So there's an application layer on Solana, but then there's the SDK that the game developers can integrate to make this work very easily that can pull from the rewards. And then the people that participate in deciding growing the reward pools also get to decide where the reward pools go. So if they're most excited about this particular game about farts, that might be the game that gets most of the Fartcoin rewards. Okay. Right. And then the other one might get a smaller and smaller piece. And then the players and the developers split these rewards. So what the protocol is doing is making sure all of the best contributors get the appropriate rewards for their contribution.
And you said, so the protocol and the SDK are being released simultaneously.
Yeah.
And then with that release, that launch, you're lining up 100 games.
Yeah. There'll be well over 100 games actually
at launch.
Yeah, at launch. And I think people, it's a little bit hard to imagine, but just think about it this way. Our view is that there's millions of games that already exist. And actually in Web3, a common complaint is, why are there no fun games with good tokenomics, right? Well, it's because building a great game is really hard and building a great token is also really hard. Now, when you take the difficulty of building a great game and the difficulty of building a great token and you multiply those chances together, you get almost zero. And that kind of explains why we're seeing what we're seeing. But if you go to the App Store, you go to these other places where games exist, there's hundreds of thousands of great games. Yeah. There's millions of games. There's hundreds of thousands that are amazing. So what if we just took the games that were already great and gave them the ability to become participants in crypto and work with these communities? What if there was a great game where they just add a little bit of fart humor to it and now suddenly it's a great game for Fartcoin? Maybe that developer was struggling to get noticed, right? Maybe this is a new opportunity to take something they spent 2 years building and do a quick sort of adaptation of it. That could be amazing for the Fartcoin community, right? There's a lot of unused assets out there. I like to think of it almost like Airbnb, right? Airbnb is a multi-sided marketplace.
Yeah.
You had all these empty houses sitting everywhere. Sometimes people lived in them. Sometimes they were vacation homes, whatever. you have inventory everywhere. For games, we have inventory everywhere, but that inventory was not accessible if you tell a game developer that they have to go and re-architect the entire way their game economy works.
Yeah.
It becomes accessible when it's as simple as just rewarding people a token in a game.
It also becomes like if you're just a game user, discovery becomes an issue as well, right?
Exactly.
The game maker is frustrated because they need to find a way to reach an audience, and the users get frustrated. Like myself, I'm a game user, finding the gems.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you just scroll and there's, like you said, hundreds of thousands, and
Exactly.
how do you know what's good?
Yep.
And feel like Open Game Protocol can help incentivize certain users to surface the games that are actually quite good.
Exactly. And traders are excited about more developers showing up to their ecosystem. So as a Farcoin game coin trader, what do you care about? New games that are great are showing up. And communities can form about pulling in developers. They can say, this game would be amazing. And they can go and pitch that developer on joining this ecosystem. It's permissionless, right?
Yeah.
Whereas we're not going to do a BD sprint and try to close AAA game devs on this protocol. This is something that anyone can contribute to making these ecosystems grow. And if they do, they benefit directly because they're getting rewarded from speculating on the game ecosystem that they helped create, right?
Yeah, I mean, which is great. So like you could have traders or Beancoin community members who don't even necessarily really like games doing the due diligence of finding good games for gamers to play.
There are a lot of different roles. Anyways. I mean, think about Bitcoin as an ecosystem, right? There are so many different participants in the ecosystem that make Bitcoin what it is. And so if you really try to describe it, like in the beginning, the way that you described this, there's one way of describing Bitcoin that's incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Close to the description you get. No, but I love it. But you know what I mean? It's well, there's these miner guys, and then there's these other guys that they sell electricity to the miners, and these other guys, like, they make these FPGAs. They're selling the FPGA to miners, FPGAs, and there's it's just like, it becomes a jumbled mess. But the point is, if you have the right incentives, then all of these things plug in, and then all we get is magical internet money out of the other side, right?
Yeah.
So somebody has to go figure out the incentives for the ecosystem. But hopefully for people playing games, it's just like, I played a Farcoin game and I earned some Farcoin, right?
Yeah, and I liked it.
Yeah.
And I recommend it.
So this concept, it's an interesting concept. I like the, matching incentives. So has this been proven yet to be successful? Either maybe somewhere else or maybe Open Protocol has done some tests that have shown good success for the launch.
We are, I don't believe in the idea of pure original thought. So even at Zyngo, my last company, a lot of people would call us pioneers of freemium gaming, right? Yeah. But we are here today in Korea, and we got a lot of ideas from some companies in Korea. For people who really know their gaming history, freemium model was going on in China and Korea in very small places. And it was really hard to study that stuff way back in 2007. It wasn't happening in the US, but we spent some time understanding what Nexon was doing with their Kart Rider game and all this stuff. And we figured out hey, is this just an Asian thing or is this a world thing? And so it's what I live in Japan now, and Masayoshi Son of SoftBank always talks about innovation time machine, which is this idea, if you're in one place and you look at something, you find something that works, you bring it to something else. It doesn't necessarily look the same.
Right.
So what we're doing here is acknowledging some of the things that are working, but as a bundle, this has never been put together. But recently, what I think is showing a lot of proof for this is you go and look at what Pump.Fun is doing with streamers. So what Pump.Fun said is hey, we have this meme coin marketplace, but it turns out there's so much revenue being made. It's about $1 billion a year. What if we shared some of these fees with streamers who could then market the tokens? And it turns out the streamers make 10 to 100 times the amount of money per minute than they would make on any other platform. And so naturally, all the streamers start signing up and they get the content, right? So if you think about what Pump.Fun is for streamers, we are for games. These are two very different markets. I think I mentioned the last time, the interesting thing about games is $65 billion a year spent on mobile game advertising.
Crazy.
It is the mother of all markets. Half of some of these large companies like Facebook's revenue is just games, and then it's e-commerce, and then after that there's not much left over. So if you can figure out a new way to distribute games, that's not a small thing. It's probably one of the biggest possible things you can build. $150 billion company, AppLovin, it's a public company. My company, Zyngo, we got to around 15 billion because we were a game studio, the biggest mobile game developer. But AppLovin's a $150 billion company because they just do distribution. So it's a really big opportunity if done correctly.
Easily one of the top stocks of 2024.
Yeah, exactly.
and MicroStrategy and others, but
and
in the top three.
and the way that we think about
I'm loving
it in the game industry is that we just look at what works. We're ruthless on marketing because we convert the payers. We have the revenue to go spend $1 billion a year on marketing. Then we really look at all the channels, figure out what the cost of acquisition is, and we're very focused on that. So if we can offer a new channel that offers a lower cost of getting in front of a player, then people will start to shift their marketing spend over. So the traders can know that this is not just a crypto Ponzi scheme. This is something where a lot of game companies are going to see the value in buying into these markets and then distributing these games via these tokens later.
Yeah. All right. So let's focus on this pumped out funding for a second. You briefly talked about it. I just want to start with, what do you make of this current, not pivot, but I guess they've started to target streaming? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's has longevity? Just your general thoughts on it, and then I have one or two kind of more specific questions about it.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay,
but I'm biased, and so like, do I love every piece of content that's coming out of Pumped Out Fund? No, but as a model, like we need to try more of this. This is, to me, the big unlock. Like, how do we distribute the revenue that's being made from a protocol in like a way that's fair and that people can, it's transparent and that helps people coordinate to build something bigger. This is something that's been missing. And I don't know that the first iteration of it will work, but like, I feel like as long as they're exploring that direction and they're at the beginning of this idea maze of figuring out what the hell it is, they or somebody else is going to figure out something here that's really, really interesting. And it's the beginning of like a whole new wave of innovation in crypto that lets us go after like these things we've been talking about for years. What if there was a social network powered by crypto?
Right.
You talk about like how these things, whenever you have a new technology, we take the model that worked last time and we kind of smash it into whatever the new thing is. And often the way that it worked last time has to be transformed completely. And sometimes it takes us a long time to figure out what that should look like. To me, this is crypto starting to figure out what that should look like. Because before we might have just said, oh, we launch a token and then we pay it to the streamers, right? But now we're getting ideas of ways to do this that are quite sustainable and creator aligned and decentralized and permissionless and really scalable. So this is, to me, is like what we were hoping we'd get out of all the sort of previous iterations of crypto native social networks. So like it's starting to actually become a real thing.
Okay, great. I like that. For this though, so from what I understand, these streamers are basically making kind of like a meme coin, right? Like a creator coin.
Yeah.
I would classify that as a meme coin.
Yeah.
Something like that. Does that in any way fit in or compete with what Open Game Protocol is doing?
No, not at all. In fact, like I think they could be really complementary, right? So our view is just like if there's a token and people want to make games to distribute the token more widely, and there's traders that are interested in believing in that idea, then the reward pools will be there and people should go and make content for it. We don't want to be opinionated about what will work and what won't work. And I think Pump.Fun, there are tokens like Farcoin is a Pump.Fun token. Okay. So like the way we view it is they're one of the best places to launch token.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more interesting things that come out of there. So yeah, could be huge.
Yeah. Presumably these streamers could use their Pump.Fun token and then have an ecosystem of games around it.
Yeah, if they can support it. There are some really big streamers. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are probably some who could. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about Korea. Here we are in Korea. Korea, I would say, obviously really well known for gaming, especially mobile gaming, as you kind of mentioned earlier. In last cycle, and to be frank, last year, a lot of the big Web3 games were in Korea. I was wondering if you have any thoughts about like Korea's place as a Web3 gaming hub, and how you think it is today.
Yeah, it is interesting. I feel like Korea has been on the forefront of business models in games actually for a long time. Like I was mentioning before, even though my company Zynga often gets a lot of credit for inventing the premium business model in the West, we popularized it for sure. There was stuff going on in China and Korea, and you got to ask yourself why that was. Piracy was rampant in Korea 20 years ago, absolutely rampant. you could not make money by selling a game here.
Wow.
Yeah, it was all bootlegs everywhere.
Wow.
Very little respect for IP law. So why were the Korean companies doing freemium? Because games as a service meant you could not piracy and steal the product.
Right.
Korean companies were forced to figure out, how the hell do I make money out of this economy that loves games,
Interesting.
but is stealing every game? Okay, and they came up with this idea that, we give them the game for free and we make you pay for the things inside the game.
Yeah.
So constraint is the mother of innovation. Korea has been shaped by these constraints. And the big thing about Korea is that used to be a net cafe gaming culture, right?
Yes.
Which is actually very different than Japan. Japan did not have a net cafe gaming culture. And people put these countries in the same bucket. Japan is a mobile flip phone gaming culture, has been a mobile gaming culture longer than anywhere else in the world because it had the most advanced phones before any other country. It's had 3G internet-wide penetration before any other country. So it's had these game companies doing mobile games that were making $1 billion a year before the iPhone came out. These games existed in Japan. Korea is like the esports capital of the world because that's what comes out of these net cafes.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. These hard
fascinating
games, right? So the business model, the culture gets shaped by that. And that has to do with maybe the way the city is built and what things pop up, where people hang out. It's been really fascinating to see. But to me, that hardcore game community has been like very Web3 aligned and very open-minded, especially with such a large retail trading market to this type of thing. It's a natural extension of a lot of the ways I've been thinking about things for a long time. So
yeah,
surprising.
I interviewed our first guest was a Korean guy who was talking about the history of Korea, and after this interview, I'm gonna have to think about. He kind of gave us a history of crypto in Korea, which is very unique to other countries, and I wonder how that has helped or hindered them with developing Web3 games. And I actually don't quite know at this moment, but I wonder. So I walked around. I don't know if you walked around at all today.
Yep.
Were you here last year?
Yes. Yep.
Now, are there more or less like gaming projects than last year, would you say?
That's a good question. Maybe it just feels like a little bit less. I think that there was a big gaming funding boom around when NFTs were working, and a lot of games raised money via NFT sales. And I think that some of them have run out of cash. So I think that as a space, it's been kind of tough to argue GameFi is the next thing. But the interesting thing is what I said before, which is like gaming is the mother of all markets. It is e-commerce and gaming that keep the wheels on the bus for all of the largest companies in the world via advertising. Google's advertising revenue, Meta's advertising revenue
wild.
Comes from these two sectors. So like you pull out gaming, you cut their revenue in half.
Wow.
So I think like when you think of it that way, it's that we haven't solved the problem that these game companies have to deserve their money and their attention. And instead we've been saying the skeuomorphic thing that I said before, which is you take the thing that worked in the past and you shove it in the new thing. We're like, oh, well, games have virtual items and virtual currencies. And we have cryptocurrencies and crypto items, it's NFTs and ERC20s or whatever. Let's just smoosh them together. And like, why isn't this working? Because it almost never does, right? It's almost always like we got to spend a bunch of time breaking a bunch of stuff, figuring out what the hell works, and then coming up with what's new. So I think like GameFi, everybody knows like when someone gets this right, it's going to be huge.
Yeah.
But like then again, like it's been so hard. Why is it so hard?
I don't know.
And I think it's like we've been stuck on one branch of the tree, right? There's all these things you can try, and you go straight for the one that looks like what last time was. And people spent maybe too much money too quickly hanging out in this branch of the tree. And we're now just kind of finally saying like, I don't know. Maybe that's not the right branch. And they're going back down to the trunk and they're going to go check some other branches, but there's a lot of interesting ones. So
yeah. As a lifelong gamer, I've been a little, I don't know, flummoxed that it hasn't worked yet, but
it doesn't make sense. Right?
Yeah.
What size did you say the industry is? The $65 billion figure? Was that the size of the industry?
$65 billion is just spending on mobile ads for games only.
Oh, okay.
So, but it's over $100 billion a year made on games. So a lot of people think of Apple as the biggest beneficiary in this market because Apple takes 30% of a transaction.
Exactly.
But Facebook maybe takes 70 cents on the dollar. Apple takes 30 cents because Apple is in the middle of the payment, but Facebook is in the middle of distribution. But no one goes around, Tim Sweeney doesn't go around saying, what the hell, why is Facebook taking this money? Because it's a bidding system. It's fair. That's how much it costs to get your game in front of somebody right now.
Yeah.
So the lesson is that like distribution is the most monetizable thing in games, period, or for any developer, right? That's what everybody's looking for. So payments are also interesting, but we've been very focused on only the payments piece in crypto for so long. And it's very hard to get right. And frankly, I think like there's a lot of great solutions already out there. Like if you want to do stable coins in your game, you want to do great marketplaces with any currency you could want on many different chains, that technology exists. So like we don't need to go build that. That's the world is well served by a lot of really interesting companies.
Yeah, great. I love that. Distribution is the most monetizable space in gaming.
Yeah. I was just taking that note as well.
All right, I've got one last question, one last area to talk about, which is, so as you said, and I know this, you live in Japan, spend half a year, I think you said, or something like that, between Japan and the West Coast, but in Japan. How would you contrast like Japan, like crypto in Japan with like crypto in Korea or gaming? Take any of that as you will.
Yeah.
Any part.
I love how dynamic the Korean market is. I feel like Japan has some really pragmatic, boring stuff that's holding it back from being a more dynamic retail market.
For example,
tax law.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's almost 50% tax when you sell a token. So what you see is that Japanese are great holders because they can't sell because they're going to get taxed like crazy. So whereas Korea loves trading shitcoins because they love to rotate, right? And so, but if you look at Japan culturally, there's a huge Forex trading culture. Like they talk about the sort of Japanese housewives trading the yen against the dollar. They're a little bit degenerate, more than like we think of other markets. So some people will just say, oh, it's culture. Like Koreans love like gambling in this way on retail, and Japan doesn't. I don't think that's it. I think that it costs money to rotate in Japan. Like it's not a good way to trade. And they're fixing that tax law very soon. It's already, and that's going to be to see what's always been one of the 2 to 3 biggest markets in the world for games and things like this, like Forex and stuff, to finally start maybe getting a little bit of a fuel on the fire to like start rotating could be huge. That could be as big of a catalyst as the US getting behind the regulatory ideas around crypto. Just getting Japan online and participating in retail in a way that they haven't could be really big. So I want to see it going more from Bitcoin and ETH and the stuff that they want to hold for years to like the day-to-day, speculation and engagement with different communities. It's happening, but it's very small compared to Korea. So to me, that's like the biggest difference and the biggest room for upside.
Very good. Frederick, do you have anything to say, anything to ask before we wrap up?
Yeah. So besides the tax thing or the lack of a tax on the altcoins, what else makes the Korean market so desirous, I guess, these altcoins and, that almost degenerate crypto culture?
Right. The other thing that hurt Japan on the tax side is they just fixed it, which is that founders or anybody who had tokens would get taxed immediately when they received them.
Oh, really?
If they were locked. So the reason that there are very few Japanese founders building projects is they had to leave. So everyone went to Singapore and stuff. And then you don't get people making money and reinvesting it in local teams, right? Wow. So they're really starting over. That's fixed. But now those people they're gone. So like we need new people to start up, make some money, build out an ecosystem, but it's going to happen now. So I think Korea's had that, right? Korea's had great funds, local funds that have been part of the global crypto community since the beginning. And that's what Japan has struggled with. So like, it's just so vibrant here, right? There's local founders, local teams, local retail, local VCs. You have everything you need to grow the ecosystem.
All right. I'll give you an opportunity for a hot take. You can decline if you want. Rank Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, and Japan as crypto hubs. No?
I'm not going to take that.
All right.
Look, I actually think like, I don't want to give too political of an answer here because like, but I think the biggest thing I would just say to people who are thinking about this, like maybe founders or anybody really, is like, they're such different markets, right?
Yeah.
They're so similar in some way. Like I said, I don't think there's a real cultural reason that Korea is so much different than Japan. I think you got to understand some things that are hard to understand about why people do what they do. And those things could change, which could lead to like more reasons to be bullish in the future about any of them. And so when I think about each of these, like I see too many founders are saying, I got to go to Asia. I got to like get people in Asia to buy my token or my NFTs without understanding the nuance in every market. Like these are different markets, and they're huge now, right, in their own right. So I wouldn't sleep on any of them.
All right, very nice, very nice. I was gonna make Frederick do it. I'll make Frederick do it later, though. Give him time to think. All right. Oh no, the Asian ranking of cities, but you don't have to do it now. We'll do it later. Don't worry about it.
Wheels are turning already.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin, for being on. And again, I'm excited for Open Game Protocol to come out. I'm definitely gonna be in there and kicking the tires.
All right.
See what it's like.